In this video, you're going to learn about array destructuring. It is very similar to object destructuring. The syntax is just slightly different. So I'm going to kick things off by breaking up this file into two parts. Up top, I'll leave a quick comment for object destructuring. And down below, I'm going to add another one for array destructuring. And I am going to comment out the book example, which was your challenge for the last video. So now we have a blank slate, and what we're going to do is just define an array, and we're going to figure out exactly how we can destructure it. So I'm going to start by creating a const called address, and this is going to be an array of strings where each item in the array makes up part of the address. So we have the house number with the street, we have the city, we have the state, the zip code, and any other information that we might want to store about the address. I'll start off with a string that has the house number and the street inside of it. So I'll use 1299 South Juniper Street. That is a real street, but this is not my address, and I don't believe that's even a real house number on that street. Next up, we're going to go ahead and add the city we're in. So I'll use Philadelphia. Then we can add the state, Pennsylvania. And finally, I'll add the zip. So we have all of this information, and let's say this is coming back from some other data source, or maybe we have it elsewhere in our code and we're getting it via a callback function. Regardless of how we get this, we want to use it, right? So maybe we use a console.log for now. And inside of a template string, we want to dump something like you are in, then the city and the state. So I'm going to say you are in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You are in. Right here, I will inject the city. Right here, I will inject the state, and I'll toss a period on the end. So in here, I want to access the address array, and I'm looking for the second item, so that would be the index of 1. Over here, I'm looking for the third item, which would be the index of 2. Now, is this going to work? Sure, we know it's going to work. The problem with this kind of code is that it's not clear what's happening. What is address 1? Is this the city? Is this the street number? Is this the zip code? Is this the country? And the same thing with address 2. There's not a lot of clear information if you were to see this statement in isolation if this data was defined elsewhere. So you might have individual variables, and we know we could do that with the tools we already have in our tool belt. I could create a const for city. I could make another const down below for state, but that's not what we want to do, because once again, we have to create a new const for every single item we're trying to pull off of the array. And we already saw that with objects, this really doesn't scale well. So what we're going to do is destructure the array. Just like object destructuring allowed us to pull properties off of an object, array destructuring allows us to pull items off an array. So right here, we start off once again with the variable type. It could be const letter var. Then we move on to some square brackets. So for object destructuring, we used curly braces. For array destructuring, we used square brackets. And then we pick the thing we want to destructure. In our case, we are going to get all of these values from the address array. Now, what goes inside of here? Well, what goes inside of here is an ordered list of variable names. So what is that going to be for us? We are going to start off with the street, then a comma space, the city. Then right here, we have the state. And finally, we have the zip. Now, unlike objects, this name doesn't exist anywhere inside of here, so it's not matching it up by name. It's matching it up by position. So street is the first thing I destructured. It's going to grab that from the first item in the array, so on and so forth, up to zip. Zip is the fourth item listed here, so it's going to get its value from the fourth item in the array up above. Now we have access to clear city and state variables, and we can use those down below. Right here, city, and right here, state. If I go ahead and save the destructuring file over in the browser, we do get you're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania once again, which is fantastic. Now, just because this array has 4 items inside of it doesn't mean we need to destructure all 4 items. You can actually just have an empty name and then it won't do anything. It'll just skip that item. So let's say I actually only want to create a city and state variable, the ones I'm using. I don't want to create a variable for zip or street because I'm not actually taking advantage of those. All we do for the last one is we just leave it off. So we say, hey, we want to destructure the first 3 items. If there are other items, we really don't care about them. We don't want to use those values anywhere. And this time around, we're no longer going to have a zip variable, something we did have before. Now for the first item, what we do is we remove the name, but we leave the comma. So this says, hey, go ahead and skip the first item, then use city for the second one, state for the third one, and then stop. We don't really care if there's other items. We're not going to destructure those. And we could go even further, getting rid of city if we wanted to. So this would just destructure state off of the array. First item, second item, third item, it's going to grab the correct one. So I could change this up. I could say you are in state. That is still going to work. You are in Pennsylvania, Prince. If I do try to bring city back into the mix, though, there is no local city variable, so we get an error. City is not defined. So just because you do have an array of X items doesn't mean you have to create X local variables when you're destructuring. Now, with objects, we had a specific name that we were pulling off of the object. So here we were grabbing name from book.publisher.name. With arrays, that doesn't exist, so there is no renaming syntax. There's nothing to rename. If I wanted to change the name of state, I would just type something in, like your state, and that's perfectly valid. So you can pick whatever name you like. The name is not important. Now, like objects, you can set defaults. So let's say I do want to set up a default for something like the state. How would I do that? All I would do is I would set it equal to some value. So right here, I could set it equal to, and I'm going to go ahead and use a default state value of New York. So now if there is no third item, we're going to use New York. I could actually change this over to a completely empty array and remove the city reference, which I already deleted, and save the file. And this is going to be completely valid. It is going to look for the first item, doesn't need it. Second item, nope, don't need it. Third item, I do need the third item. It's going to say, hey, there actually is no third item, so let's go ahead and use the default. If I got rid of the default, what would be the value for state? It would be undefined, and we would get you are in undefined printing to the screen. So just like we can with objects, we can set up defaults for array destructuring. I'm going to undo some of those changes, bringing the address back in, and I'll also bring back in the city variable right here. Now we have the complete working example using this little address. What you're going to do as your challenge for the video is go through a similar array, and we're going to pretend that we have a menu for a coffee shop, and we are going to have individual items. So I will have a const. I'll just call this one item, and this is going to represent something that we sell, something that appears on our menu board. And we're going to have an array, and in here we're going to have a few strings. The first string is going to be the thing we're selling. So we can go ahead and set up coffee, and we'll specify that it's hot coffee and not iced coffee. Then we're going to go ahead and list out 3 prices: small, medium, and large. So for a small coffee, I might charge $2. For a medium coffee, we'll go ahead and charge $2.50. And then for a large coffee, I will charge $2.75. So we have this structured data. We have the item, the small price, the medium price, and the large price. And your challenge for the video is going to actually be to destructure this data. Your challenge is to print the following message right here, a console.log template strings. We're going to say a medium coffee, hot, costs, followed by the price. We had $2.50 for that. So currently all the data is in line. You're going to be using destructuring to grab the first item and the third item. You don't need to grab the second or the fourth. And then you're going to use those new variables you created inside of this template string as opposed to the static text. So you're going to grab first and third items using array destructuring. Now, once you have everything done, you should see this exact message printing to the screen. Then go ahead and change the data. Maybe switch this up to an iced coffee and change the price for a medium, and make sure the new data shows up to the screen as well. Take some time to knock this one out. Feel free to comment out the other example above. That'll make the output in the console a little bit easier, a little less cluttered. And when you're done, go ahead and click play. All right, how'd that one go? I'm going to go ahead and kick things off by just adding a destructuring line right here. Const. I want to grab some stuff, and I'm going to grab that stuff from the item array above. What do I want? I want the first item, and I want the third one. So am I going to name the first one? Sure. I'll call this one item name, comma, space. Am I going to name the second one? Nope, I don't need the small price. So I'm going to add a comma with no name. Then I'll move on to the other one. This is the one I do want, the medium price. I'll call this one medium price. And finally, there is a fourth item, but we're not even going to set up the comma. We don't care about that. But we do have item name and medium price, which means that we can go ahead and actually use those inside of the template string. Right here, we will remove the static text and we will inject the item name variable. And we'll do the same thing right here for the medium price. Injecting the new variable we just pulled off of the array, medium price. If I save the program, everything should still work as expected. A medium coffee hot costs $2.50. I'm going to change this over to an iced coffee and charge way more. Let's go ahead and just crank the prices up by $1. And if I save the destructuring file, we are getting the new information. A medium coffee iced costs $3.50 is printing to the screen. So object destructuring and array destructuring are really, really nice features. We're going to be using them quite a bit in the coming lectures, starting with the next one, where we get back to the Redux example and refactor it. I'm very excited to get to that, so I'll see you next time.